So I think it's very, very easy to say now that the 2024 NBA draft lottery was absolutely crazy. I mean, the fact that the Atlanta Hawks had like a 3% chance to win it and did is just mind-blowing. Again, I actually told my mate like a day or two before the draft lottery happens, I just feel like some random team is going to win it. Unfortunately, there were no cameras on, so I got no proof of this. I'm like flight with basically everything he says. But I really did feel like some random team was going to win it. I did not think, though, it would be the Atlanta Hawks, who do have the #1 overall pick, which is absolutely crazy. So I'm very excited to, of course, get straight into this with you guys, because again, I'm not going to lie, a lot of my picks have definitely changed now, and I've been watching some other mock drafts, and I really do think there are a lot of crazy opinions going around, just because no one really can judge this draft, as it just changes every single day. It's really like the 2013 draft, where there's only a couple stars in it, but there's so many good role players that you can take, but there's also a chance that a couple of these guys definitely might be bust. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it with the first overall pick, which does belong to the Atlanta Hawks. I actually do have them selecting Alexander Sarr. Now, you guys know, who have been watching my draft videos for a bit now, Alexander Sarr, or Alex Sarr, as most of you guys probably know him by, is probably nearly my favorite player in the draft. Again, he actually is born and raised in France, but did actually play his basketball for the Perth Wildcats in the Australian NBL League, where he absolutely dominated. Again, one of the best, if not the best defender in this whole entire draft class. He would be so perfect for the Atlanta Hawks, whether they trade Trae Young or keep him. Again, I would love to see a duo of Trae Young and Alex Sarr. Again, this guy can play center, he can play power forward, he can basically do anything you really need him to do. Again, his #1 NBA comparison is, of course, Evan Mobley. A lot of people have been comparing him to Evan Mobley, who legitimately finished, I think, 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year count in only his, I think it was his 2nd year in the NBA. Evan Mobley finished 3rd. Again, these last year he's had a lot of injuries, but again, this guy is one of the best power forward / centers in the league, and Alexander Sarr plays exactly like him. Again, the ability to not only guard the center position, but to be quick enough to move out and be a power forward and guard the perimeter is truly underrated in this league. Again, there's not many players that can do it. There's only a handful of guys that can switch from power forward to center with absolute ease, and Alex Sarr definitely is one of those guys. Again, he's jumped up to being #1 on nearly every mock draft, I believe, except I think ESPN still has him at 2, if I remember right, which is really, really weird. But the fact is, this guy can do everything. He's a very good rebounder, very good defender. I actually believe he has a really underrated mid-range shot. And again, if you've got this guy open, really, if it's going to be a floater shot in the paint or whatever, he's 99% of the time probably going to hit it. But again, that mid-range shot has definitely come through really nicely, and we got to see what some of it does look like in the NBL, where he was against literal grown men and some of the best competition in the whole entire world. Again, some people would argue that that league is the 2nd best league in the world, and he was able to show his mid-range shot off, and when he was open, he would often hit it down. You know, again, the only thing that I think Sarr really kind of struggles with is, I don't think he's the greatest 3-point shooter, but again, like Evan Mobley, will occasionally hit that 3-point shot. And let's be honest here, with how he plays, you don't need to be a good 3-point shooter. If you've got that mid-range game, which he does have, you've already got a leg over a 50% of the centers in the NBA already. And not just that, he's already a better defender than most of them. He's a better rebounder than half of them already as well. Again, this guy has, as I just previously said, experience with playing on, men and obviously great competition and not just, high schoolers who are going into college as well. He has played on all different shapes and sizes, the best competition outside of the NBA, arguably in the world. Great defenders, great shooters. He's going to be a gem for the Atlanta Hawks. And again, there's still a lot of rumors going around that Trae Young might get traded. I still believe they should keep him, but again, Woj also was one of those reporters, and when Woj is reporting on something, he's usually cooking. I actually feel like, though, Trae Young would be pretty happy to take somewhat of a back seat, and wait for this rebuild to, build around him. Again, I don't think he would particularly too care. If he does, then he probably will get traded. But if he wants to wait for a couple years, because it looks like the Hawks are going to try and rebuild, like the rumors are saying, you're already adding Alexander Sarr to this team. You've got Jalen Johnson, who was absolutely fantastic for them. Trae Young in his own right, who is still relatively young. Again, he's not that old. This team looks like it's heading in the right direction. They can obviously move on from Capella now if they want to as well, which I think they've been wanting to do for like a year or two. Onyeka Okongwu, I still think is a backup big in this league. I'm not sure what they're going to do with him, but I think he would be very good serviceable with Sarr. And if not, maybe even playing Sarr at power forward minutes. There's no reason why as well you can't start Onyeka Okongwu and Alexander Sarr together. And I still think that's a big chance for the Hawks to do. So again, I think this makes a really great pick. He's, in my opinion, by far the best player in the draft. Can do absolutely everything, really. And I think could very well come straight into the NBA and be one of the better big men in the league. And he's already played against that NBL competition. So skies are the limit for this man. And I think with the first overall pick, it just makes so much sense for the Atlanta Hawks to, of course, select Alexander Sarr. Now, with the second overall pick, we have the Washington Wizards, and I've seen almost everybody and their dad take a different player with this pick. I think they obviously really wanted Sarr. Unfortunately, they can't get him, as I have him going number 1 overall. But in my opinion, the next best player is actually Zachary Rasache, who is also out of France, which is pretty funny because if Rasache does go too, that means pick 1 and pick 2 will be out of France. Again, Rasache is a 6'10" wing / forward. Again, extremely long arms, insanely efficient 3-point shooter, which is very impressive for his age. He's also been efficient against professional competition, which we know, like Alexander Sarr, he has played against. He's a great passer. He can execute those really tough passes. On offense, he's just really good, not only with his passing, but his ball movement, his spacing, the mid-range shot. And then if we look at the other side, his defense. Great off-ball defender. He clogs up the passing lane, switches really well, and is a good help defender when needed. Not only is he good off-ball, but he also is really good on-ball, and he can stick with some of the smaller players at that shooting guard position if he really needs to. He's great with dealing with wings, great with dealing with forwards as well, and he's obviously played professional competition. And again, that's obviously going to translate to the NBA. Unfortunately, unlike Sarr, there is 1 or 2 downsides with, I think, Rasache. Again, reports say he does struggle with guarding bigger players. He is coming in pretty skinny, but I think that really doesn't matter because in the NBA, you give him a year or 2 in the weight room and he will be able to guard those stronger players in no time. So I don't see that being too much of a downside. The only one which I don't like is he isn't exactly the most athletic guy, and it might take him a bit of time to convert to the pace and athleticism that is in the NBA. But again, when we're looking at this dude, he is an elite shooter, which is what the NBA absolutely loves. And I think the Washington Wizards desperately need. Now, where they're going to be going in this upcoming season, I'm not too sure. They were obviously one of the worst teams in the league, but there's definitely room for them to obviously improve. I definitely feel like they're going to try and get an off-season in a Jordan Poole and get him back to what he previously was as a player. They're going to want another year in Bilal Coulibaly, who was very young coming into this Wizards team. I'm not sure if they're going to keep Kuzma, but if they do, Rasache and Kuzma at that forwards positions could be a good 1-2 punch. And then, yeah, it's probably going to take another year or two to develop in these drafts by adding another center or two. But again, when we look at it, some people might have Bazulis, or some people might have Topic as the best player, the second best player in this draft. In my opinion, Rasashe is still there. I believe if the Pistons actually got the number 1 overall pick, they probably would have even taken this guy with 1 over Sarge, just because he fits their team better. And also, I think there's signs that he could be one of the league's best, right? With how the Wizards are going, and they're going to be looking probably like they're going to have another 2 or so years, if not more, rebuilding, right? They're definitely going to have time to develop players like Rasashe, and getting Rasashe in the gym, getting some weight on him, you're already going to knock half the criticisms that he does have already going into this draft. The realistic thing is as well, in my opinion, again, he is an elite shooter. He is one of the best shooters in the whole entire draft. He can also create his own shot. He can shoot, obviously being an off-ball player as well. It's going to be really, really good. And I think this guy has all-star level all over him. And also, if they do decide to keep Kuzma and they don't find a trade for him, again, that still might take some time. And also to build his trade value back up and slowly build this team into being more of a winning outfit. I think he would low-key be a good 1-2 punch combo, I should say, with Kyle Kuzma. What the hell am I trying to say, man? I think they would actually work really well together at that forward positions. Of course, Koulibaly at that 2, I think, as well. And that's a really tall team. Like, Koulibaly at the 2 is very tall. Rasashe 6'10", playing the small forward position, which is tall. And then again, Jordan Poole. Do they want to go with him at point guard? Maybe. He's more of a shooting guard, obviously. But low-key, a team of Poole at the 1, Koulibaly at the 2, Rasashe at the 3, and Kuzma at the 4. It's not too bad. They obviously are still very young, very immature, need to develop as a team. Obviously getting a center in as well. But yeah, that's not that bad. And I actually think the Washington Wizards would really like that. And that's why I've got them taking Rasashe with the 2nd overall pick. Now with pick number 3, we do have the Houston Rockets, who I believe actually have Brooklyn's pick, which I didn't even know that was going to get this high. I think this is one of the surprise ones that, of course, also jumped in that top 5. Again, they got a ton of great players to, of course, select with this pick. I've actually got them taking Martez Bazulis, though, who a lot of people have on all different ways. I've actually seen some guy have Bazulis at the 1st overall pick, and then some guys have him at pick 7. I really, really like Bazulis and how he plays. He's another one of those guys who has now played against, obviously, veteran experience playing in the G League. He's played against grown-ass, man. He has done all of that type of stuff. Again, he is a very, very good player. Extremely high basketball IQ, who consistently makes great plays on both sides of the ball. He's a great mover off the ball as well. Like, there's a chance you're going to hit this dude up in the corner if you find him open, of course. Again, he's a very solid passer. Some people are saying that he is one of the best passers in this whole entire draft. Again, the stats might not show it, but as a 6'10" small forward, the fact that this guy can run the floor and pass it with absolute ease is absolutely awesome. His shot is really, really good, and he can hit the 3-point really well, I believe, too. And again, he's a really solid off-ball defender who is definitely going to convert to the NBA on both sides of the court. Again, some downsides, right? Sometimes his scoring was a bit inefficient, but he being in the G League and playing against that competition, that can happen. You're going to have games where he would be matched up against a 23-year-old young inexperienced guy who he probably tore apart. But then he's going to have games where he was probably against some really experienced guy who would have been twice as strong as him, really making it hard for him to score. Again, getting that experience in now already combats it for the NBA. Again, sometimes the ball in his hands when he's not looking to pass can be a little bit not that good. Like, he can, turn it over or get the ball stolen off him. But then when he does have, the ball in his hands and he's not got super competition at him, again, he does make a very good pass of the ball. that can also be led to, again, he's playing really, really good and experienced guys. Outside of maybe the NBL, the G League would be the other elite competition outside of the NBA too. So there's some very good guys he had to play against. A lot of people are actually comparing him to Franz Wagner with just his scoring and his shooting. As mentioned earlier, he's a great shooter, right? And the best thing is too, he can score, whether it's being an off-ball player or a shot creator. Martez Bazulis can absolutely do both. Now, he's going to come into this Houston Rockets team and be very, very effective. I still think they'll be looking at some forwards. They might be moving on from Jashawn Tate or whatever, a couple other players here and there maybe as well. But I think they've got their guards. They like Fred VanVleet. They like Amen Thompson too. So I think they're good on their guards. They've got Alfred Şengün at center, Jock Landale at backup, who got better and better as the season went. I think they'll be looking for a forward with this pick, and I definitely feel like Bazulis is the best available there. He can fit in with their defensive, scheme that they're trying to, of course, do over there in Houston. And again, he adds another shot creator to Fred VanVleet and Alfred Şengün. And the reality is, I think he could literally start tomorrow for the Houston Rockets. This is a really good player who makes a ton of sense. Again, they've got good players there. Like if maybe they want to start Amen Thompson with VanVleet next season and Brooks at the 3, Bazulis can always come off the bench to start off with. That's definitely an important scenario. Again, touch wood, this doesn't happen for the Rockets, but injuries do happen. We, of course, know that, and I think there's very well a big opportunity where he's starting a ton of games. Again, they got Jabari Smith, of course, at that power forward position as well. But again, if he was to get injured, touch wood doesn't happen, that's another position Bazulis can legitimately play. He can obviously play some power forward ball as well. So this is a great pick by the Houston Rockets. This is automatically going to come in and help them get that extra step into their rebuild and possibly be a playoff team next season. So very good things happening for the Houston Rockets, and this pick is obviously extremely smart and makes a ton of sense. Now moving on with the 4th overall pick, we have the San Antonio Spurs, and I've actually got them selecting the exact same guy I had them selecting before the lottery even happened, and that's of course Nikola Topic. I believe Topic makes a ton of sense for this team. You've got a 6'7" point guard who some people believe is the second best player in the draft. Again, he's the most dynamic playmaker in this whole entire draft by a considerable margin. He's extremely effective in the pick and roll, makes great skip passes, and is known to show off with some mind-boggling vision. He's one of the best passers they've seen in the draft since, of course, Josh Giddey, and could automatically come into the NBA and be one of the best passers as well. Again, there's been some doubts on his scoring ability, but he's definitely improved on that. Some saying it will already translate to the NBA. He's got a great first step, and he's fast enough to get by absolutely anyone. He's also extremely talented around the rim, being 6'7". He showed great signs with his shiftiness and would make it unstoppable if his Europe play, of course, does translate to the NBA. He's got a really good mid-range shot. He definitely needs to improve on his three-point ball, but it looks like that is very much coming as we go. Again, his main downside is his three-point shooting, as I just said. He is a pretty good off-ball defender, but his on-ball defense right now appears to not be the greatest, and he'll definitely want to improve on that in the NBA. Of course, that's something that Pop might not necessarily like, but his ball handling and creativity is outside of this world. Again, being such an incredible pick and roll player and passer, he is going to fit really well with Victor Wembanyama, and that should be the goal with this pick. Wembanyama, arguably to some, is already a top 10, top 15 player in the NBA, especially going into next season. This guy did that with not exactly the greatest passes around him. Again, no offense to Trey Jones, who is low-key a very good passer, but I just think if you're bringing in a dude like Nikola Topic, who doesn't necessarily need to be a shot creator, you've already got Vassell there, you've got Wembanyama there, and you've got Keldon Johnson, who played a lot off the bench. If you were going to tell Nikola Topic, all you need to do is come in and be an elite playmaker, play some defense, and occasionally step up as a shot creator when we need you to, this man is probably going to average 10 assists per game. Like, you're putting him in straight away, most likely as the starting point guard, under Greg Popovich, where he's going to have Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and Victor Wembanyama to play make to. And that's not even counting if they decide to sign a very good shot creator in, free agency. If they were to bring another good shot creator in, maybe even if it's a bench player, like a Malik Monk, right? Probably not him, but, just using him as an example. If you were to bring in a type of guy like that, give, obviously, Nikola Topic 4 very good shot creators to play with, this man is legitimately going to average you probably above 6 assists in his first season, which would be absolutely insane. And this guy's got 10 assists average per season, or per game, I should say, written all over him, in my opinion. He is the prototypical guy you want to obviously match Victor Wembanyama with. So I think it makes a ton of sense to go forward with this pick. He also fits Vassell's game style, who they, of course, seem to want to move with in the future as well. And again, you keep building out that starting 5, maybe sign another guy here and there as well, and you're going to have a really good team in San Antonio straight away. This makes a ton of sense for the San Antonio Spurs. And yeah, there's a lot going on here. Again, I didn't mention who he is compared with, but it is being said that he's a bit of a Manu Ginobili, Tyrese Halliburton hybrid of a player. And I think anyone who hears Tyrese Halliburton at this rate just makes you want to drop to the floor and start crying in Walmart or something because of how beautiful that man's play is on the court. Again, leading the Indiana Pacers to a second round series where they did, of course, do very, very well. I think it is a very great pick by, the San Antonio Spurs. And if you're needing to bring in a player who's going to match Wembanyama, yeah, you're practically already doing that here. So with the 4th overall pick, I've got the San Antonio Spurs selecting Nikola Topic. Now with the 5th overall pick, this is the first pick I've got where it is really hard because unfortunately the Detroit Pistons yet again fell down in the draft, where they now have the 5th overall pick, I believe, for the 3rd year in a row. And I'm going to be honest here, in my opinion, those 4 players I just had previously drafted are the most 4 clear players in this draft. When you get to this 5th overall pick, it starts to get a lot complicated because there are a ton of guys you could absolutely draft. And when I looked at this Pistons team, I think they've really been trying to do a couple of different things, and that's, of course, correct their guards. Again, so I figured let's go with the best guard available, and that's Robert Dillingham out of Kentucky. Again, when we look at the Pistons right now, Jaden Ivey spent a lot of time coming off the bench. Again, towards the end of the season, he did start, but I think it is very, very designed by Monty Williams and the Pistons that they see him as a 6-man, whether we disagree with that or not. They also very much see Cade as that shooting guard, and then other than those two, they have no really other good guards at all. So they're definitely going to need, I think, to draft their future starting point guard here. Dillingham is arguably the best guard in this class. Again, I believe Topic is better, but there's a ton of things that Dillingham does a lot better than what Topic does, with a lot of scouts even having him ranked with the 3rd and 4th best player in this class, even over Topic and Martez Bazulis, who I did previously have going. Again, he has an elite combination of speed and athleticism. He is a great ball handler who's extremely crafty at losing defenders with his quick dribble moves. He's a great playmaker with extremely good court vision and is very capable of executing plays at high speeds. It's being said that he's one of the best shot creators in this whole entire draft, where there's no limit from where he can score from. He also puts a ton of effort on both ends of the court, offensively and defensively. Again, it is being said that he is compared to Tyrese Maxey or Anthony Simons right now, and I see Tyrese Maxey all over this guy. A really good scoring point guard who I think would work really well with this Pistons team, because we got to remember, even though he is a great playmaker, I don't necessarily know the Pistons extremely need their point guard to play make. They've got Cade there at that shooting guard position, who has already averaged himself like 8 assists per game throughout, the seasons that he's had. He, of course, will play shooting guard, it looks like, furthermore in his career, but will, of course, mainly play a bit of point guard on offense. That shooting guard, he'll obviously guard on defense, with a bit of small forward here and there, being 6'8". But Dillingham, he can come in, guard that point guard position, play maybe some shooting guard minutes here and there, obviously, when Cade has the ball in his hands. Good shooter, great shot creator, 15 points per game, of course, in his first college year. Again, the reality is there are some downsides with this player, though, unfortunately. Being 6'2" is decent, but doesn't have a lot of strength for a 6'2" guy, which has scared a lot of people. So that's definitely one to look at. His on-ball defense is also considered not the greatest, and he can get pushed around pretty easily and be considered a bit of a mismatch target. But the thing is, with the Pistons right now, they're looking for a lot of things. They're looking for scoring. They're looking at shooting. Their defense isn't the worst thing in the world. I think with how they're going to look at this right now, if you can draft Dillingham, who I still believe will be a better player than Jaden Ivey, of course, you can let Jaden Ivey go into that more six-man position like they think he will be in the NBA. I just think it makes sense. Dillingham's a perfect player to put alongside, of course, Cade Cunningham. They've got Asar Thompson at that 3 as well. And I think if they were to sign a power forward who could be a consistent shooter and then bring some shooters off the bench, there's no reason that team couldn't be really good in the future. You've got shot creators everywhere. Dillingham, obviously Cade Cunningham, and then of course Jaden Ivey. You've got defense in Duren and Thompson. You'll have floor spacing in Cunningham, maybe the 3-and-D power forward they decide to sign or whatever. Of course, shooting they might bring off the bench. And look, if the rumors are true that they're bringing in Tobias Harris to be another good shot creator and good shooter for this team, which, again, when Tobias Harris is on, he does shoot pretty well. When he's not, he can struggle. But if they're going to do this right, Dillingham at the 1, Cade at the 2, Thompson at the 3, Tobias Harris at the 4, Duren at the 5, Ivy as your 6-man, and then some shooting off that bench, that's a near playoff team. Give that team another couple more years to develop or whatever, and you could be looking at one of the more better teams in the NBA. But with the 6th overall pick, as mentioned earlier, we have the Charlotte Hornets, who, again, were one of those teams that, unfortunately for them, fell in the draft, where they did fall down to the 6th overall pick. And outside of the top 4 players in this draft, it gets really different on who would you take through pick 5 to pick 11. Every one of these guys you could possibly rotate, but again, I've kind of gone off the semi-best available, but also I think in terms of what Charlotte need. And I've seen a lot of people actually take this guy with the 6th overall pick to Charlotte as well, but that's actually Donovan Clingan. Again, a lot of people would argue that this man is the 3rd best available player in the draft. Again, I believe ESPN actually have him ranked at pick number 3. He was absolutely insane in the March Madness. Again, taking home the chip, obviously, with UConn. He did an extremely good job, again, proving to be one of the best centers in the whole draft. If we're counting Sarr as the best power forward / center, then I guess, you know what, obviously Klingen's the best center. He would work really, really well with this Charlotte Hornets team, who you can tell desperately need a center. I think it's a pretty big consensus opinion amongst the league, and even Charlotte Hornets fans, who believe that Mark Williams will probably be a backup center in this league. Again, there's a lot of things he can't do, but a lot of things he can do. The Hornets also had a ton of offers for Nick Smith, who's only on $5 million as their backup center, so they'll probably look to move him on for another pick here and there as well. When we look at Donovan Clingan, I believe that he is one of the couple of players in this draft who has absolutely massive starting potential all over him. I believe he will be a starting center most likely in the NBA. He's got great size, extremely good rim protection, great touch around the rim. He's a very solid passer for a big man as well, which is very, very interesting. Again, it's kind of that Jokic, Şengün like breed of player now that teams are going to be look at. Again, 7'2" big man who is a great rebounder offensively and defensively. Again, there are some, of course, downsides to him. It's being said that he's not exactly the greatest shooter around and that he's not a very good switchable defender, which again does suck. But when you get a guy in like Klingon who's going to be a good defender in the interior but also be a pretty good scorer, as we've seen he can be, again, that's what the Charlotte Hornets are absolutely going to be asking for. It is being said that he's a bit of like a better player than what Steven Adams and Jakob Poeltl were in their prime. And again, I know that's not exactly the greatest comparisons in the world, but this is the 2024 draft for you where players are being compared to above average role players. But you know what? Don't disrespect my guy, Steven Adams. When he was in his prime for Oklahoma, and even some of the short basketball he played on the Pelicans, this man was an absolute brute at center who could, at any given night, average you a double-double while being a defender who was very good. And a man you do not want to go near on the court was Steven Adams. Again, Klingon is kind of compared to him, but also Jakob Poeltl for his interior defense too. And I feel like the Charlotte Hornets need a guy like that. They need a strong player who can come in and help this team. They need their future starting center. And obviously moving Mark Williams to the bench for them is very important too, because they finally get someone to actually have off that bench. Some might argue the Hornets have the worst bench in the NBA, but we can see now they're starting to add a piece or two here and there. Again, if they select Klingon, you're going to see Mark Williams come off that bench. We've already seen Grant Williams come off that bench now as well. They might sign a dude here and there in free agency. Seth Curry was a decent pickup. I kind of hope they bring him back, but we'll definitely have to see. But this overall just makes so much sense for the Charlotte Hornets, a team who is not necessarily sold on Mark Williams at their starting center, who sees a dude like Donovan Klingon, who was ranked by ESPN as the third best player in this draft, fall down to him at pick 6. They're going to take him. He also should hopefully be a good fit for LaMelo Ball. Again, let's just hope LaMelo can play some basketball for this Hornets team. And look, I know a lot of people think it's all doom and gloom for the Charlotte Hornets, but if they can bring back Miles Bridges, of course get another year into Brandon Miller, a year now into Klingon, some actual time for LaMelo on the court. Again, there's no reason why they will be the worst team in the league like some people have them at. I think they could actually be okay, but definitely time will tell, and we'll have to see how their free agency goes and how they, of course, I think, navigate this rebuild over the next couple of years. But again, with all those things being taken into account, this is why I have Donovan Klingon going pick number 6 to the Charlotte Hornets. Now, with the 7th overall pick, we do have the Portland Trailblazers, and I actually have them selecting a player who I think could be one of the best in the draft, and that is actually going to be Cody Williams out of Colorado, a 6'8" forward whose stats don't necessarily paint the picture. He only averaged 12 points per game, but this is a guy who people say has that raw potential to, if he does show out in the, again, interviews and the workouts, could find himself being a top 5 pick very easily. He is being compared to a bit of Paul George and Jalen Williams as we do speak. He's a very, very good two-way player, and I think that's the thing that people forget is, look, his offense isn't 100% there just yet, but his defense is absolutely insane. This dude is a 6'9" guy, 6'8", 6'9" guy who can guard, shooting guard, all the way to the power forward position. The Portland Trailblazers are obviously looking for a forward or two, I would think, after taking Scoot Henderson with their top pick last year, already having Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe as their other guards. They're a bit lower on that forward position. Again, you got Jeremy Grant, that power forward position. Who knows how much longer he will, of course, be with the Portland Trailblazers. But I think they're going to be looking for a small forward next season. Again, Sharp might play there temporarily because obviously he's too talented now to be coming off the bench, it does seem. But they're going to be looking for that more natural small forward where I think Cody Williams is, of course, going to come into all of this. Again, ranked number 7 overall by Fanspo and number 11 by ESPN. It's being said that Cody Williams has the potential to be one of the most versatile two-way players in the whole entire NBA. He is oozing with potential as a shot creator, passer, and defender. He has some glaring weaknesses though, unfortunately. Off-ball defense isn't the greatest thing at all. He's not exactly too assertive with the ball. And again, his IQ might definitely need to develop. But as this guy gets older and as more game time comes for Cody Williams, this is a man who I think could be very, very good for this Portland Trailblazers team. Again, he is the type of guy though that is going to be a project, but we know this, right? And the Portland Trailblazers, they are going to know this. They, I think as well, are excited to take on those type of players. I mean, Scoot Henderson, I really hated the disrespect that he got throughout the whole entire season, being called the worst player in the NBA by some. Pretty disgusting, because this man obviously clearly needs some time just to evaluate the way he plays and how he's going. He's only 20 years old, and if that takes another year or two, the Portland Trailblazers are going to be here for it. And that's what I love about this team right now, is they are committed to this rebuild. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if Brogdon is moved on. Jeremy Grant maybe gets moved on, but still, I low-key kind of like him for this team. Then other than that, there's not too many other players I think they will truly move on from. Maybe Robert Williams, but they'd like some more experienced guys on this team, and I guess that's kind of why DeAndre Ayton is pretty serviceable so far for this Portland Trailblazers team. A man who should be heading into his prime another year. Again, he explained why he had issues with Portland this year and why he didn't play the best. I have some hope that DeAndre Ayton can turn to a good player, and again, obviously a lot better. And look, over a year or two, this team could definitely really develop. You've got pieces here if they do decide to take a guy like Cody Williams. And yeah, he will develop alongside Scoot. They also have a ton of shooting, I believe, that's gone underrated on this Trailblazers team, in Jeremy Grant, of course, being the big one, with a couple guards like Simons here and there as well, and Sharp. A player like Ron Holland, who might not necessarily be, Cody Williams, might not necessarily be the greatest shooter straight away, but he's a terrific defender, can come in and do his thing. Yeah, it makes sense by the Portland Trailblazers to, of course, look at a guy like him, and that's why, of course, I do have him going with the 7th overall pick. Now, moving on to the 8th overall pick, we have the San Antonio Spurs, who really lucked out in this draft, getting the 4th overall pick. Again, who I, of course, did have them selecting Nikola Topic. Again, a lot of people saying he's going to drop in the draft because he did his ACL and stuff. Turns out he obviously did not do his ACL. In fact, he was pretty lucky, but escaped with, I think, minor injuries. He definitely will still go pretty high in this draft. At pick 8, though, they're going to be looking for another guy to bring in. I've got a bit more of a development guy, but of course, half this draft is pretty development, as we know. And I've actually got them selecting Ron Holland at pick 7. Again, some drafts have him at 6, some have him about 10. This is a guy who will take some time to develop, but has potential to be one of the best players out of this draft. Again, was, I believe, ranked the number 1 overall pick at one stage in this draft. It's being said he's one of the most well-rounded athletes in this whole entire class. He's fast, he's strong, and his vert is extremely good. He has the ideal frame for a wing in the NBA, being 6'8" with long arms and a ton of muscle. He's an elite scorer in transition. He gets down the court faster than anyone else, and he's good at finishing plays at high speeds. He's a solid mover off the ball, good cutter, and can fly around screens. Great driver, great finisher around the rim, and he's got very good perimeter defense. Again, some of the things that he's not good at. His shot creation can be a bit inconsistent. He can be slightly turnover prone, with his passing not exactly being the greatest, and he doesn't exactly have the best 3-point shot. A couple of comparisons, though, are Jalen Brown. When Jaylen Brown first came into the NBA, his shooting was very streaky for the first couple of years, but you're looking at a dude who could who was extremely athletic, very good defender, who could basically do everything but be the greatest shooter and greatest ball handler. Jaylen Brown is still not the greatest ball handler. There's always that meme, telling him to change hands and all this type of stuff, make him go left. When we're looking at this right now, right, Ron Holland is a guy that the Spurs have time to develop. They're looking for a ton of positions right now on that San Antonio Spurs team. We obviously know they've got their center filled out and their shooting guard, but those are really the only two main ones. They seem to really like Keldon Johnson off the bench. I'm hoping for them they bring Cedi Osman back. I felt like he was very good for them as well as a bench player and sometimes starter. But if you're looking for a point guard now, you got that Nikola Topic pick coming in. They might be looking for a small forward who is going to come in and play defense, which Ron Holland will definitely come in and do. And I think it just makes sense overall. We know the Spurs they're probably going to be rebuilding for another year or two. It's probably going to be a lot more fast-tracked than a lot of other teams, though, just because Wembanyama is arguably a top 15, near top 10 player already in the league. That's just obvious, right? And then if you partner him with Topic, who's not only one of the best passers in the draft, but a guy who could be one of the best passers in the NBA straight away, you're looking at a team who's quite quickly going to run up and move up this draft ranks. The perfect thing I love about San Antonio that has gone super underrated as well, in my opinion, is they know their roles already. Even though they are one of the worst teams in the NBA, you see Greg Popovich already telling Keldon Johnson to come off that bench. The reason is because even though Keldon Johnson might be good enough to start, he knows eventually on this Spurs team, Keldon Johnson will be a six-man in the NBA and will be an elite six-man in the NBA. This has meant that he's left the small forward position open, he's left the power forward position open, and he's told his scouts to go and draft these guys because I've already got you a six-man, I've got you the shooting guard, and I've got you the center. Go fill me out the rest of the starting five. And that's what I think they're going to do with Ron Holland. I think they're going to look at him and just say, look, we need that small forward. We need a guy who has size, who has athletic, who can defend. Again, he might not be the greatest shot creator, but do San Antonio really need a shot creator right now? Again, you've got Wembanyama there. You've got Devin Vassell right there as well. And as mentioned before, Keldon Johnson off that bench. There's also a rumor going around that the Spurs could very look to trade in another contract or sign a guy to be a bench warmer. Well, not necessarily bench warmer, be a shot creator off the bench. Saying a bench warmer is a bit hard. And a bit harsh, I should say. But I did see someone say, and this is obviously not probably going to happen, but I saw someone say, like, if the Mavericks wanted to dump a guy like Tim Hardaway, who's on $18 million, who, they might look to move him to free up some cap, right? Well, then the Spurs, they not only have cap, but are looking for a shot creator maybe off that bench instead of starting. That could be like the type of player. So I don't necessarily think they're going to be looking for a major shot creator straight away with this pick, and they're going to look for a dude that they can maybe develop, that can start at small forward, can play his role as a 3-and-D wing and just be a very good defender. And that's exactly what I think Ron Holland can do and accomplish for this San Antonio Spurs team. So I love this pick. I love both the picks that I've got them taking, which is of course Topic and Ron Holland. I think the fact is that the Spurs can automatically bring in now 2 extra starters while, let's just say, Trey Jones goes to that bench. You have Jones off the bench now, a full-time Keldon Johnson off that bench. Cedi Osman will be pretty much full-time off that bench if they bring him back. A lot of things are starting to look up for San Antonio, and I wouldn't be surprised if this rebuild was absolutely fast-tracked and they were competing for the playoffs in legitimately no time. So that's why, of course, I do have them selecting Ron Holland, of course, with the 8th overall pick. Now, moving on to pick 9, and this is one of the hardest, if not the hardest picks in the whole entire draft, because I think it's pretty self-evident right now that the Memphis Grizzlies are 100% looking to trade this pick. Again, there are a lot of theories going around of that they might be looking to packaged this pick, Marcus Smart, and another player here and there to look for a near all-star type of player like a Brandon Ingram. Not specifically maybe that player, but someone on the lines of that. Again, I even saw someone say they might be linked to Jarrett Allen and move Jackson back to that power forward position. That would be really interesting as well, and the Cavs who may be looking to trade Allen, they might do that. So there's a lot of really interesting things that the Grizzlies could do with this 9th overall pick. If you were to have a defensive duo with Jaren Jackson and Jarrett Allen as the center and power forward, with Ja Morant passing to them, Lord have mercy on the league. But you know what, for this video, I got to select a player here. And of course, I kind of just went best available because I really didn't know. I also feel like maybe this player could semi-fit in with Memphis as a guard off the bench. But that's, of course, Reid Sheppard. Now, Reid Sheppard happens to be arguably the most interesting player in this whole entire draft, because it's no secret that a lot of teams have, or a lot of scouts, and those NBA experts have this guy going at pick 3. I even saw someone have him on going pick 2 to the Washington Wizards. Now, I'm not that big of a fan of Reid Sheppard compared to a lot of people, although I still think this is an amazing player we're looking at here. Again, ESPN have him ranked at number 7. He's a the best three-point shooter in this whole entire draft, and one of the best we have seen in a long time. It's also being said that he's an insanely underrated passer, a pretty decent off-ball defender, but his shot creation is low-key the thing that a lot of people really like about this guy. When we look at Reid Sheppard, if you were to bring him in the NBA right now, he should already be a top 10 shooter in like the league. This man shoots it absolutely lights out. A ton of people are saying he actually fits San Antonio, but I've seen some people say he fits Memphis. What he's kind of being compared to is Seth Curry and Donte DiVincenzo, who are players who have had really, really good careers. Donte DiVincenzo being an elite role player right now for the New York Knicks. Seth Curry has always been an elite role player. I've seen some people say that his downside is though he kind of plays a bit like Jimmer Fredette, which is a bit disrespectful, low-key. But again, there are some downsides to this man. His defense is pretty rubbish. He gets pushed around easily. His size doesn't really suit it. And again, he often looks like he's going to be playing like the shooting guard type of role in the NBA. I feel like though, how to make Reid Sheppard a good player is you play him at point guard, and then obviously you have a shooting guard who's more of a playmaker. But there are some people on the more optimistic side that Reid Sheppard can be one of the better playmakers in the NBA. Again, he did average 4.5 assists for Kentucky. We've got to remember Darius Garland averaged like 3.9 assists for Vanderbilt, and then became one of the best, playmakers in the NBA. Even when he's had his downside now for the Cavaliers in the playoffs, his playmaking has still been one of the most elite in the NBA. So the realistic thing is there's some downsides of Reid Sheppard, there are some upsides. I don't know if Memphis Grizzlies select him, if they keep him or whatnot. If they do, you're still looking at a man who's got like a 54% field goal percentage, one of the best shooters in the whole entire draft, as I said, and maybe could be a decent bench player for them. But as we all know, this pick is probably getting traded, right? I think it's pretty obvious. If they were to go up to the Cavaliers and say, we can give you like a Marcus Smart and this pick, the Cavaliers might accept that for Jarrett Allen. Again, Smart's pretty good, but he wasn't that good this year. Had a ton of injuries. While Jarrett Allen, even though he hurt his ribs and couldn't play in the playoffs, he was literally playing like an all-star this year and literally made the all-star team 2 years ago and is still like a top 5 best interior defender in the NBA who puts up 16 and 10 like literally every night. So if you were to add that to Memphis and you give them Jaren Jackson with Jarrett Allen, God, I think Ja Morant would love to play with that more than I'd like to play with fucking Tate McRae. Should I keep that in the video? Probably not, but you know what? I'm going to do it because I love Tate McRae, and if she's by 1 in 1 billion chance watching this, please DM me because I think we could be a very good couple. But anyway, I'm obviously getting very off track with this video. What I'm trying to say is here, though, I think this pick will probably get traded. But at the end of the day, Reid Sheppard to the Memphis Grizzlies could be a good thing. Some scouts, as I said, have this man going pick 3. So whether or not you decide to keep him or not, he could still be very traded, or he could be a very good asset to the team. Now, with the last pick in this draft that I'm doing, we obviously got Dalton Knight from Tennessee, who is a 6'6" forward. I've actually got him, of course, going to the Utah Jazz. I think the Jazz would very much like a man like that on their team. He's ranked 8th by ESPN. He's a very good shooter, very good rim player around the rim. He's a great finisher. That's what I'm trying to say. He is elite in transition. He gets down the floor before anyone else and is very effective in finishing plays at high speeds. Very solid athlete and will likely be able to contribute to the NBA straight away. Some downsides is he's an older prospect. So I've seen some people say that at 22 years old, what you get from this man in college is what you're going to get in the NBA. The realistic thing is, though, he's a really good shot creator at 6'6", averaging 22 points per game and 5 rebounds. Again, he's being compared to a taller Norman Powell, who has a ton more opportunity to be a better defender in this league. Realistically, I think the Utah Jazz are going to be looking for another shot creator, right? They've got Larry Markkinen there, and they've got Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton. But with rumors Clarkson might be getting traded, a couple of other different things in here and there, them going younger, and ultimately they're kind of young players that I feel like they don't really have a predominant shot creator there. Again, when we look at Keontae George, well, it'll be interesting to see how he goes as a player. Looks like a pretty good defensive guard that can, of course, play make. You know, as mentioned earlier, with their young players who aren't necessarily the best shot creators here and there. Taylor Hendricks is definitely one of those guys who isn't exactly that great of a shot creator, but is a very good young player, should help out. And you just got guys like Lucas Samanic, Bryce Sensabaugh. I don't know how many of them are going to be on the team going forward, so it's going to be interesting to see. But I feel like you're going to be looking to bring in a shot creator who can help out Larry Markkinen here. And even though he's a little bit older, there's not exactly too much else at this pick where you can get a lot better. And as I said, Knight is ranked number 8 overall, and he's a man that's putting up like 22 points per game. I believe he might be actually putting up more points per game than nearly everyone else in the draft, which some might be seen as sad, but realistic thing is this man is an absolute beast, and he has been in college. Again, there are a lot of experts who really, really like what they see out of Knight, and some even say if this man does do a little bit better in the workouts and obviously the interviews and whatnot, he could very easily find himself in the top 5. So when I'm looking at the Jazz right now, I'm thinking, look, they need a shot creator. I also think they might be looking for a small forward going forward. Again, I don't know if they're going to be moving on from John Collins. We'll see. They tried to do that at the deadline. Larry Markkinen, I like him better as a small forward. I'm going to be honest here. But having that man play small ball center, which he had to do for the Jazz this season, was just not great. And watching him and Collins together as a center and power forward duo was also not the greatest thing ever. I think, yeah, there's an opportunity we could see Markkinen go back to that 4. But there's an opportunity for Knight to play the 3. Opportunity for Knight to maybe even play the 2. And he's 6'6", pretty athletic. Can probably do both. So I definitely could see that maybe happening in the NBA. And we'll see. We'll see what the future is going to look like with Colin Sexton and the Utah Jazz. We'll see what the future is going to look like with half their team. Because there's definitely some guys here who might get moved. And I've seen other people say they might try and target a free agent star to even put alongside Larry Markkinen. So that will be interesting to see. There's a lot going on with this Utah Jazz team, and maybe the 10th pick also very well gets traded. We'll definitely have to wait and see, but I think Knight is a very good player, arguably nearly the best shot creator in this whole entire draft. You're making it happen. He's a great shooter, and I think he does fit this Utah Jazz team really, really well. So that's why I've got him going with the 10th overall pick. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Did you guys like this mock draft, or did you guys not? Who would you disagree with, and whatever it might be? Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to the channel for all the latest NBA content, NBA news, draft content, all that type of stuff. And don't forget to subscribe to my IRL/vlog channel, gaming channels, All of them will, of course, be getting linked in the description down below. But as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.